I think part of it is getting through some of the disappointment of, when you work on issues, you really get passionate about it and you really want it to pass right at the legislature. But you got to put in perspective. Every year there's about 4,000 bills that get introduced, and so I get to introduce an allotment of about 20 to 30 bills, and so you're like, okay, this is the best idea in the world, right? And I think this past year there was a few particular housing bills that I was really pushing, and another year I was trying to help the police department with this electronic citation bill, which is very convoluted, but it was very important to them. And you push it along and you push it along, and we work through all of the committees, and it goes to the other side of the chamber, which is the Senate, and it gets pushed and it gets through them, and then you go through at the end you have to then reconciliate the differences between the two chambers in a conference committee, and you work through it, and then you pass it onto the floor for final reading, and then it dies, right? And so those are to me the most disappointing times, because it happened to me twice so far during my 5.5 years, where I got a bill to all the way to the end, and then the last day of session it dies, and there's just tremendous disappointment because you worked so hard and you thought it was going to go through. But it's not only because you work so hard, it's because of the people out there who really wanted it, and you couldn't deliver in some respects, and I get it. You're not going to get a lot, because at the end of the day we only pass about 250 bills out of the 4,000, right? And so there's a very selective process that happens, and so you got to be really focused and you got to be really deliberate on how you're pushing these bills. But nevertheless, when something dies, there is a sense of disappointment. Especially on very important bills, and it's happened to everyone, right? I think the other year there was a vaping bill, because we've been trying to combat vaping in schools, and so they got it all the way to the governor's desk, and then the governor just vetoed it because there was just too many issues in the bill. And so the people that were really working on that vaping issue, some of them were disappointed. I think this past year we came in at a different angle, so instead of banning vaping flavors, because the federal government did some banning of their own, we essentially are just taxing vape at the same rate that we tax tobacco. So hopefully that will, disincentivize people from vaping. I think those who want it will do it anyway. But they'll have to pay more, and at least we'll get some taxes, and the state will have some revenue for it. So I think that's kind of an interesting one. I think this next session, probably the big issue, I guess I'm going off on another tangent, but this came to mind and I thought you might be interested, probably legalizing cannabis will be a hot topic. So last year we really wanted to move in that direction, but I think we essentially said no, not this year, and I think the thought was maybe this coming year. It's a complicated issue. I think a lot of other states have already legalized it, but I think there's a lot of regulatory issues that you have to work through. I think there are parts of Hawaii who still aren't ready for something like that. I think at the end of the day, there are a lot more people who are skeptical about it, so I think we have to put in all the regulations to make sure that it's safe, that we're appropriately taxing it, and I think at the end of the day we just want to get rid of the black market. So because I think if you charge too much, then the black market is gonna be where people go. So that's probably a big issue this year. Last year we took care of the minimum wage. So that minimum wage is going up. I think it's a few dollar, or 50 cents to $1 every year for the next 3 or 4 years. So there'll be increases, but I think it doesn't matter because the market is paying way higher than what the minimum is, just because of the tough job market. But a lot of very interesting issues that will be coming up that we'll have to kind of tackle, and I think we'll just have to see. You never know sometimes what the big issue will be. Probably until the midst of session, and then it starts to get really, really intense.
Wow.